Trap is M. Night Shyamalan's new movie, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And by that I mean it didn't really annoy me as much as I thought it would. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of stupid ideas and moments throughout this movie, and I'm not even going to try to talk about this movie without even giving spoilers away because there's just so much in this movie that I want to discuss. So if you don't want spoilers for this movie and want to watch it yourself, there's your warning. Now before I talk about this movie, I want to talk more about M. Night Shyamalan's other movies. His breakout movie The Sixth Sense is truly a classic and it really demonstrated a lot of talent that he had at one point. In M. Night Shyamalan's early career, he really knew how to utilize music and not utilize music to get the best effect for a certain scene, and there's a reason why the twist of that movie is considered one of the greatest twists ever. Next he made Unbreakable, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. That movie is just endlessly creative with its cinematography, its look, its color palette, and its entire tone. Next came Signs, which a lot of people dislike, but I really enjoyed. I personally think I saw his vision for the movie and I think it played out very well, and I'll definitely rewatch it at some point. But after his first 3 movies, that's when his career kind of took a nosedive. After Signs came The Village, which probably has one of the worst M. Night twists ever, and after The Village came Lady in the Water, which is one of the most pretentious movies that I've ever seen. Seriously, that movie is just very aggravating throughout, and you can definitely feel the ego sipping through the screen. After a bit of time came After Earth, which doesn't even feel like an M. Night movie, which makes sense if you look into the history as to why that movie was made in the first place. And I do know that there are others in between those movies and after those movies, but I haven't really gotten around to seeing those yet. So basically what I'm trying to say is that M. Night Shyamalan went on top of the world in terms of filmmaking to making some truly awful movies. So when I watched the trailer for this movie, I expected it to be very stupid and annoying, and it definitely was. But when the movie started out, I was pleasantly surprised by how much it had going for it. For one, I think Josh Hartnett's performance as this main character did a very good job. It's not some of the best, and sometimes writing falters here and there, but you can definitely see the effort being put forth. I think the relationship between the father and daughter character was fairly well done. It's kind of cheesy in a realistic sort of way, but it did work for what it was going for. Another thing that I'll give props to this movie is how they dealt with certain information being delivered to the main character. So if you watch the trailer for this movie, you would understand that there's a character in this movie that tells the main character exactly what's going on. And when I watched the trailer for this, I definitely thought, okay, this is something I'm definitely going to complain about when I see this movie. But the way it was presented in this movie, I found it to be very believable. There are definitely people that are way too trusting for their own good, and the main character seems like a very friendable, normal kind of guy. He is a firefighter after all, so it gives good reason for him to trust him with this information. And now while those are qualities that certainly took me off guard, and I can definitely say I enjoyed about the film, it really just feels like everything I was enjoying about the movie really fizzled out fairly quickly. For one thing, the entire gimmick of this movie feels very misleading. When you watch the trailer for this movie, you would expect this to be some sort of very high tension battle of wits between 2 characters in an attempt to escape. And while there are certainly ideas of something like that happening in this movie, and there are certainly things that he does to kind of accomplish that, it never really feels like that's a major part of this movie at all. Another thing about this movie that's interesting to talk about is that it feels very inconsistent and unsatisfying. Unsatisfying because it didn't really feel like a battle of wits between 2 characters, that being between the main character and the criminal analysis lady, even though this movie's kind of insisting that it is. And the biggest thing that drags that angle down with the film is the fact that it doesn't feel like much happens during the stadium scenes at all. The movie does feel like it wastes some time here and there with just pointless shenanigans and pointless scenes, and it doesn't really feel like it does a good job of building up tension or suspense throughout these scenes. And when I say this movie is inconsistent, what I mean is the fact that the main character doesn't really want to talk to the police when he leaves the theater. But this really doesn't make sense because he talks to the police twice throughout this entire movie and he bluffs his way through it pretty well. Secondly, the entire idea of trying to trap this one man in this stadium is highly unrealistic, to be honest. The main criminal analysis lawyer that's running this entire show gives very vague descriptions of saying, oh, look for somebody who's psychopathic, of being manipulative and very good at lying. I mean, what does that even mean? If they're manipulative and good at lying, you're not going to realize that they're manipulative and good at lying. Another thing that's very weird and distracting about this movie, and is very forthtelling that this entire movie was basically made as a thought towards M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, is the fact that there are many scenes that just show you a lot of the songs and musical numbers from the concert they're at. And you might be thinking, yeah, they're going to obviously show parts of it because of the location of the film, but there are seriously very long, drawn out parts of this movie where it's watching nothing but the dance dancing and the songs. A kind of funny part about this movie was when the main character is walking down a hallway with a bunch of other people in it. He stole a police radio so he's able to hear everything that the officers are saying and how they're coordinating this whole operation. Anyways, he comes across a fire alarm, and just before he's about to pull it to cause a distraction to force an evacuation, he hears on the police radio he stole the lady saying, "If anyone tries to pull a fire alarm or cause a distraction to force a mass evacuation, just make sure you don't let any men leave the stadium." Which just brings up a bunch of questions that have to be asked. First off, how are you going to stop everyone from leaving the building if they're all rushing out at once in a mass evacuation? Secondly, what if he actually started a fire to cause the mass evacuation? Well, would you just try to keep everyone inside? Come to think of it, he was able to do quite a lot without anybody really noticing him in a lot of public places. He pushes the lady down the stairs earlier in the movie, he put some glass jars into a deep fryer to cause a minor explosion to cause a distraction. He's able to steal a few things without people noticing. He almost pulls a fire alarm in front of everyone. It just seems like he was able to do a lot without anyone really noticing him or taking notice to what he was doing. Now, I would say the two biggest problems I have with this movie is the fact that it feels very inconsistent, but also the fact that it feels incredibly anticlimactic, especially near the end of the movie. So after trying a few different options to see if he can escape, such as going on the roof and checking out some other areas that seem to be blocked off by the cops, he learns that the back exit to the backstage of the stadium isn't being guarded because that's where the singer leaves. So he's able to pull some strings to get his daughter to sing on stage with the singer, and that way he can get into the back room and get out through the back exit. But when he gets backstage, he realizes that there is security checking the back door. Oh no, what am I gonna do? So he pulls the singer aside to a private room and he pulls out his phone, which has a live security feed of a guy he's holding captive. So he tells her that she has to take him and his daughter out in her exit, which isn't being guarded by the police, and out through her limo to get to their car, or else he'll kill this guy. And he says, if you try to do anything or warn anybody, I'll push the button and I'll kill this guy. So the singer obliges and they get out, surprisingly. And the problem with this is the fact that they could have easily just said, oh, we need to check this guy even if you're taking him out through your exit, just like, you know, for the standard protocol or whatever. It's just so stupid that this is how he's gonna get out, because one, it doesn't make any sense, and two, it's just so lame and anticlimactic. It doesn't feel like you've really put much of a plan into place or had much of a battle of wits to get out of this situation. It just feels like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. It felt really rushed and sloppy, and when it happened in the theater, I just rolled my eyes and thought, oh, come on, this is so lame. At first, when he pulled out his phone, I genuinely thought, oh, this might be something that's a bit of a distraction, or he might have an ace up his sleeve or something like that, but nope, this is how he's gonna do it. So ignoring the fact that this entire plan of getting out of the stadium is completely stupid and illogical and ruins any chance that this movie had of being a battle of wits, the singer and the dad and the daughter all get into the car, and the dad says, oh, you can just drop us off a few blocks at our car. But then the singer says, oh, can I come to your house? And the teenage daughter is all excited, and the dad, not wanting to cause any suspicion or just not deal with this, allows her to do so. And it's obvious that the singer at this point doesn't really have any sort of plan as to what she's gonna do at the house. And thinking about it now, it's probably a very stupid idea that she went to the house at all. I mean, in all honesty, what's the main character's long-term plan in all this? Let's say that she did just drop them off at their car. What, she would probably just call the police and the event organizer and say, oh, the killer approached me and, you know, I can identify this guy. So anyways, they get to the house, they go inside, and she starts talking with the family, the mom and her little brother. At one point in the conversation, she mentions the plan to catch the butcher at the stadium, and she has this really unintentionally funny line of dialogue. People think the killer is a middle-aged man, which is weird because a lot of my fans are a bunch of teenage girls. It was just very funny when she said that, and did not fit the scene at all. It was just stupid that she didn't need to say that at all to begin with. Anyways, during the conversation, the dad just trying to get her to leave, being all friendly and say, oh, you probably have a lot of stuff to do, you're a very busy person, why don't you just leave our house, get out of our house right now, just kind of trying to be friendly about it. But then she quickly says, oh, well, can I play a song on your piano real quick? And Riley, that's the daughter's name, why don't you come along and play with me? So she plays her song, yet another song written by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, and just another excuse to see her sing. And after she finishes the song, she says, oh, we should take a photo. And at this point, the dad's holding the phone, just trying to warn her, saying, hey, if you try anything, I'm gonna kill this guy. And says, oh, your dad has a phone, and takes a picture using his phone. And then she quickly runs off to the bathroom with it and locks herself in. Meanwhile, the main character is wailing on the door, trying to get his phone back, kicking at it violently. He's shouting at his wife and kids to get into their rooms and just leave him alone. And while he's doing this, the singer opens up Instagram Live and goes live to a bunch of her fans after she collected information from the guy of where he could potentially be. And so the fans say, oh, I think I know the location of that, and says that they're gonna go free him. Eventually, the main character breaks down the door and notices that the guy is freed. So he grabs her and goes off to the garage, and then he forces her into the car. And at which point she decides to play a psychology move and pretend that she is his mother. Now, this is an idea that's been presented throughout throughout the film. At the stadium, he would constantly hallucinate seeing images of his mother around. And I think even the criminal analysis lady said something about that in her report. So when she pretends to be his mother, she says a bunch of things saying, "Oh, you're a very naughty boy, you're a very bad boy, you made a bunch of dumb mistakes, but that's okay, you can be good, you can choose to be good." It was just very unintentionally funny to basically see her bullying him this way. Anyway, so he's about to drive off with her in her car, but then she sees her family standing outside, and there can be sirens heard in the background, so he lets the singer go, closes the garage door, and goes back inside the house. Eventually, the house gets swarmed by SWAT and police, and they're about to go in, and when they go in, they find a secret tunnel in the kitchen that leads outside to the neighbor's yard. Meanwhile, the singer goes into her limo, and then someone gets into the car dressed as a SWAT officer to take her away, and it turns out it's the main character. And this whole bait and switch thing feels like something you would write into a parody of this type of movie. It was genuinely such a stupid reveal when it revealed that it was the main character in the SWAT uniform driving away, and the fact that she was able to get to the house in the first place with being a singer and famous person and not having a regiment security with her is just stupid to begin with. Anyway, so the main character starts driving along and has her held captive in the back of the limo. He says that he's taking her to a place that he has hidden out and that it will be safe for them to lie low for a while and that he's going to take her as hostage. They drive into the city and it's a pretty crowded area and they're waiting in traffic, and at this point the singer is handcuffed in the back of the limo but manages to get towards a window and roll it down and scream for help. The main character quickly notices what she's doing and rolls up the window, but it's too late and there's a whole crowd of people gathered around the limo, and eventually they're able to get her out and save her. So they immediately call the cops, and the cops show up on the scene with the criminal analysis lady, and they're about to breach the door after they surround it and shoot out the air of the tires. So they get to the door and they find that it's just some sort of mannequin dressed in SWAT uniforms rather than the main character, and it's revealed that the main character is standing in the crowd in just a bunch of regular normal clothes and is walking away. So at this point in the movie they just genuinely pulled the "oh, he got away" trick twice. So at this point in the movie they pulled the bait and switch "he got away" twice now, which is equally stupid because it happened once and now it just feels like they're basically rehashing the exact same idea and don't know really how to end this movie. In all honesty, watching this for the first time in the theater, I thought there would be so many points where the movie would end and it seemed like it was trying to wrap things up, but it just managed to keep going because it just kept being a mess at that point. And the fact that he was able to get out of the limo without anybody noticing is just very stupid and raises so many questions. Like, the vehicle was entirely surrounded by a bunch of people and police, so how did you manage to slip out with anyone noticing you? And why would you continue to stand around for a long period of time until they breached the door and found out that you weren't there? Why not just make your getaway while they were still surrounding the car? None of this makes any sense, and this movie is very stupid. Anyways, it's later in the night and the main character's wife is in the kitchen. Her children have been taken away because they think it would be safer if they were away from this situation for right now. And there's a police cruiser parked outside her house to protect her in case her husband comes back. So while she's in the kitchen, she turns around and notices that her husband is sitting at the table in the kitchen just waiting for her. And at this point in the movie, it reveals as to why the police were even at the stadium setting the trap in the first place. So the wife confronts the main character and she actually reveals to him that she's the one that tipped off the police in the first place, because apparently over the years she's grown suspicious about her husband and thinks that he's the butcher that's been killing all these people. And the justification that she gives for this is very stupid. She says that she's noticed that her husband has psychopathic stares and is very good at lying in certain situations and is able to rattle off complete stories very easily, and that the smell of cleaning supplies isn't the same smell that comes from hospitals that he would go to as a firefighter or something like that. I don't know, these seem pretty vague and very stupid conclusion to draw from this. Anyways, as they're talking, the wife brings out a piece of pie and suggests that they both eat, and as the main character finishes eating the pie and is about to get up to slap his wife, he starts feeling dizzy and weak, and it's revealed that the wife has spiked the pie with the same drug he used to incapacitate his victims. So as he's trying to stumble out of the house, he has another hallucination of his mother and they start talking, and he starts talking about his childhood and whatnot, and then all of a sudden the conversation is cut short by him getting shot with a stun gun from a police officer, and it's revealed that the woman he's talking to is the old criminal analysis lady, and him being shot by a stun gun was a very unintentionally funny scene like many others in this movie. Anyways, they handcuff him and they're taking him out to a police wagon, but before he does so, he insists that he pick up his kid's bike and put it back the way it's supposed to be. Now, this character has OCD, so there are plenty of times throughout the film where he's done stuff like this, organized and straightened things out. So he finishes doing that, and then he gets into the back of the police cruiser and they're driving away, but then it's revealed that he had taken a piece of wire from the bike and is using it to unlock his handcuffs in the back of the police cruiser. And then the movie just ends with him maniacally laughing into the camera. So not once, not twice, but 3 times they pulled the "oh, he was able to get away without anybody noticing him" against all odds situation. And at that point, it just feels like a joke, like something you write into a parody movie of this kind of movie. So while I can definitely say that there were aspects to this movie that I found appreciating about it, the entire experience as a whole is just really poorly presented at the end of the day. Especially the last third of this movie, with its switching perspectives from the main character to the singer as if she's the main character of this movie, and trying to paint M. Night Shyamalan's daughter in a good light throughout embarrassingly panderizing scenes to her that are almost dedicated entirely to her songs and her as a person. There are a few details about this character that I thought were well done, such as him being a firefighter, a very heroic act, but at the same time being very manipulative. And as I said earlier, I think Josh Hartnett did a good job with his performance. And there were a few writing details here and there that I thought were well done, but really this movie just feels like it's a cop-out of its own gimmick and doesn't really have that much to offer. I would kind of recommend this movie to people just to experience its weird tonal change throughout the third act, and I'll definitely rewatch this one sometime in the future. It's a fun little movie to think about, and this one gets a 4 out of 10.